A millionaire abandoned and poisoned his son to die in the forest on Christmas Eve. 1 year later, he received a Christmas gift that left him frozen. The snowstorm raged mercilessly on Christmas Eve, turning the forest into a frozen wasteland. Snowflakes fell thick and heavy, obscuring everything beyond a few feet, while the wind howled through the bare trees like a mournful cry. In this desolate scene, a black luxury car slowly made its way along the deserted road, its headlights cutting through the darkness. Inside, William Parker drove with mechanical precision, his knuckles white against the steering wheel. In the backseat lay his 9-year-old son Noah, unconscious, his small body limp and vulnerable. The boy's face was peaceful, unaware of his father's betrayal, still believing in the magic of Christmas just hours ago. William pulled over in a clearing, the engine's purr falling silent. For a moment he sat motionless, staring at his reflection in the rearview mirror. His eyes, once warm and loving, now held nothing but cold calculation. He stepped out into the bitter cold, snow crunching beneath his expensive leather shoes as he opened the back door. "The world has no place for the weak," he muttered, lifting Noah's unconscious form. The boy's head lolled against his shoulder, a terrible parody of the tender moments they once shared. William carried his son deeper into the clearing, each step leaving a trail that would soon be erased by the falling snow. He laid Noah gently in the snow, arranging him as if putting him to bed one last time. The boy's breath came out in small, visible puffs, growing weaker in the freezing air. William stood, brushing snow from his coat with mechanical precision, his face an emotionless mask. "It's better this way," he whispered, though whether to convince himself or some higher power, even he didn't know. Without a backward glance, he returned to his car, leaving his only son to die in the frozen wilderness. As William's car disappeared into the night, the snow continued to fall, beginning to cover Noah's small form. The Christmas lights from distant houses twinkled through the trees, their warm glow a cruel reminder of the celebration happening in homes across the city. Families gathered together, sharing love and joy, while a child lay abandoned in the darkness, betrayed by the one person who should have protected him above all others. No one could hear the soft whimper that escaped Noah's lips as consciousness slowly returned, or see the tears that froze on his cheeks as he realized his father was gone. The forest kept its terrible secret as Christmas Eve turned into a night of unimaginable betrayal. If you found yourself captivated by this tale of betrayal and survival, join our storytelling community. Every subscribe fuels our passion to craft more powerful narratives that touch hearts and explore the depths of human emotion. Don't miss our next unforgettable story. Noah Parker had always been a child who saw magic in the smallest things. At 9 years old, he possessed a sensitivity that set him apart from other children his age. His large blue eyes, inherited from his mother, seemed to hold both innocence and an old soul's wisdom. Despite living in a mansion filled with expensive toys and luxuries, Noah found joy in simple pleasures, watching snowflakes dance outside his window, creating stories in his mind, and decorating the Christmas tree with painstaking care. Life hadn't always been cold and lonely for Noah. Before his mother's supposed death 3 years ago, the Parker mansion had been filled with warmth and laughter. His father, William Parker, had been a different man than one who would spend weekends teaching Noah to ride a bike, who would read bedtime stories with different voices for each character, who would smile with genuine joy at his son's smallest achievements. The change in William came gradually after the accident. Noah remembered that rainy Tuesday morning when his father was driving him to school. A truck had appeared out of nowhere, forcing their car off the road. Noah had escaped without a scratch, but his mother, or so he was told, had died in the hospital hours later. William Parker never forgave himself, and slowly he seemed to stop forgiving Noah too. Day by day, Noah watched his father transform from a loving parent into a distant figure who buried himself in work and ambition. The bedtime stories stopped. The weekend activities ceased. The warm smiles were replaced by cold glances and dismissive gestures. William Parker became obsessed with success, power, and wealth, as if trying to fill the void left by his wife's death with material possessions. Now, Noah lived in a world of silence and loneliness. The mansion's halls echoed with emptiness, and the army of servants who maintained the property were instructed to keep their interaction with the young master to a minimum. Noah spent his days in his room, drawing pictures of happy families and writing stories about brave children who overcame great challenges. His teachers noticed his exceptional creativity and sensitivity, but their attempts to discuss it with William Parker were met with indifference. Despite the emotional neglect, Noah never stopped trying to reach his father. Every morning, he would leave small notes on William's desk, drawings, stories, or simple messages saying, "I love you, Dad." Most ended up in the trash, unread. Yet Noah persisted, holding on to the hope that somewhere inside the cold businessman was still the loving father he remembered. The approach of Christmas always stirred something in Noah's heart. Perhaps it was the memory of happier times when his family was whole and love filled every corner of their home. He would spend hours decorating his room with lights and garlands, creating his own small sanctuary of holiday cheer. Each year, he hoped this would be the Christmas when his father would return to him, when the magic of the season would melt the ice around William Parker's heart. What Noah didn't know was that his persistence, his unwavering hope, and his gentle spirit had already caught the attention of someone else, someone who watched from afar with tears in her eyes, someone who had been forced to make an impossible choice years ago. While Noah continued to believe in Christmas miracles, fate was already setting in motion events that would forever change his life, though not in the way anyone could have predicted. This sensitive, creative child, who had endured more emotional pain than any 9-year-old should, was about to face his greatest challenge yet. But through it all, the very qualities that made him special, his compassion, his resilience, and his capacity for love, would prove to be his greatest strengths. For even in the darkest of times, Noah Parker never lost his ability to see the light in others, even when they couldn't see it in themselves. Emily Bennett carried the weight of an unspeakable sacrifice in her heart. Once known as Emily Parker, she had been forced to walk away from her only child under threats and manipulation. Now working as a child protection advocate, she channeled her pain into saving other children, all while keeping a secret vigil over the son she couldn't claim as her own. Her story was a tapestry of love and heartbreak. 10 years ago, she had been William Parker's wife, living what appeared to be a perfect life. Their love story had started simply enough. She was a passionate social worker. He was a rising businessman with dreams of changing the world. They fell in love, married, and when Noah was born, Emily thought she had found her slice of heaven. But paradise began to crumble when William became entangled with Marcus Sullivan and the Sons of Wealth. Emily discovered their illegal activities and threatened to expose them. Marcus responded with an ultimatum: leave her family and stay silent, or watch her husband and son die. To protect those she loved, Emily chose exile, allowing William to tell Noah she had died in a car accident. The years that followed were a study in quiet agony. Emily changed her name to Bennett, moved to a modest house on the outskirts of town, and built a new life dedicated to protecting vulnerable children. She took a job at a local children's advocacy center, where her colleagues knew her as a tireless warrior for children's rights, never suspecting she was fighting her own private battle. From a distance, Emily watched Noah grow. She saw him at school events, carefully hidden in crowds of parents. She followed his achievements through newspaper clippings and school newsletters. Each glimpse of her son was both a blessing and a cursed joy at seeing him grow, an unbearable pain at not being able to hold him, to tell him how proud she was to simply be his mother. Emily's appearance had changed over the years, her once dark hair now lighter, her style more subdued, but her eyes remained the same, holding both infinite kindness and deep sorrow. She lived simply, her small house filled with children's artwork from those she'd helped, and a hidden box containing every newspaper clipping, every photo she'd managed to collect of Noah. Despite her personal tragedy, or perhaps because of it, Emily became known in the community as someone who would go to any length to protect a child in danger. On Christmas nights, she would patrol the streets, looking for children who might need help, unable to bear the thought of any child suffering during what should be a magical time. The irony wasn't lost on her that she had become a guardian angel for other children while unable to protect her own son. But Emily never gave up hope that someday, somehow, she would find a way to reunite with Noah without putting him in danger. She kept detailed records of Marcus Sullivan's activities, slowly building a case that might one day free her from his threats. What Emily couldn't know was that fate was about to present her with both her greatest challenge and her one chance at redemption. On this Christmas Eve, as snow fell across the city, the careful walls she had built around her life were about to crumble, forcing her to choose between maintaining her protective distance and saving her son's life. As she prepared for her usual Christmas night patrol, Emily felt an unusual tension in the air. Something was different about this night, though she couldn't say what. She pulled on her warm coat, checked her emergency supplies, and stepped out into the swirling snow, unaware that she was about to face the moment she had both dreaded and longed for during all these years of silent watching. William Parker's transformation from loving father to ruthless businessman was a study in tragedy. Standing at the window of his penthouse office, drink in hand, he cut an imposing figure expensive suit, perfectly groomed silver hair, cold blue eyes that had forgotten how to smile. At 45, he had become one of the city's most powerful men, but the cost of that power was written in the emptiness of his gaze. 3 years ago, William had been a different man. His world revolved around his family weekend trips with Noah, morning kisses with Emily, family dinners filled with laughter and warmth. Success meant nothing without them to share it with. But that William Parker died the day Marcus Sullivan entered his life, offering a business partnership that seemed too good to refuse. At first, the Sons of Wealth appeared to be merely an exclusive business club. William was flattered to be invited, eager to join the ranks of the city's elite. By the time he realized the true nature of the organization, its corruption, its criminal activities, its iron grip on its members, it was too late. Marcus Sullivan had already woven a web of debt and blackmail around him. The day Emily discovered the truth became the beginning of William's descent. Marcus presented him with an impossible choice: force Emily to leave, or watch his family die. William chose what he thought would protect them, never suspecting that this decision would be the first of many compromises that would slowly erode his soul. After Emily's departure, William threw himself into work, as if success could fill the void she left behind. He began to see Noah not as his beloved son, but as a painful reminder of his failures, the same blue eyes as Emily, the same gentle spirit he no longer deserved to be near. Each time Noah reached out for affection, William withdrew further, building walls of cold indifference between them. The mansion became a monument to his wealth and his emptiness. Expensive art lined walls that no longer echoed with laughter. Designer furniture filled rooms where no one sat. The Christmas decorations Noah loved so much became irritating reminders of happier times William couldn't bear to remember. Yet beneath his frozen exterior, William Parker was a man drowning in guilt and self-loathing. Late at night, when the mansion was silent, he would sometimes stand in Noah's doorway, watching his son sleep, remembering the father he used to be. But by morning the mask would return, and with it, the cold distance that seemed to be the only way he could cope with what he'd become. Marcus Sullivan's hold over him grew stronger with each passing year. The demands became more extreme, the threats more dire. William found himself doing things that would have horrified his former self, each act driving him further from the man he once was. He told himself it was all to protect Noah, but deep down he knew he had become a coward, too afraid to face the consequences of standing up to Marcus. Now, as Christmas approached again, William Parker stood at a crossroads he didn't even recognize. The Sons of Wealth had one final demand, one that would test whatever humanity remained in his heart. As he stared out at the falling snow, the ghost of his former self whispered that there must be another way, but the man he had become was already calculating the cost of submission versus rebellion. What he couldn't know was that his next decision would set in motion events that would either destroy him completely or offer him one last chance at redemption. The man who had lost everything that truly mattered was about to face a choice that would define not just his fate, but the lives of everyone he had ever loved. The morning of December 24th dawned cold and grey, with snowflakes dancing outside the mansion's frost-covered windows. 9-year-old Noah Parker woke early, his heart light with hope despite years of disappointment. The Christmas tree he had decorated alone stood in the corner of his room, its lights twinkling with quiet persistence. "Today will be different," Noah whispered to himself, pulling on his favorite holiday sweater, the last Christmas gift his father had given him before everything changed. His small hands trembled slightly as he retrieved a carefully wrapped package from under his bed. Inside was a hand-drawn book of stories and pictures he'd created over the past year, each page a piece of his heart hoping to reach his father. The mansion's halls were silent as Noah made his way to the kitchen. The staff had been given the day off his father's way of ensuring complete privacy. The emptiness felt heavy, but Noah refused to let it dampen his spirit. He could smell coffee brewing, which meant his father was already awake. William Parker sat at the massive kitchen island, his attention fixed on a tablet displaying stock prices. He didn't look up when Noah entered, but his shoulders tensed slightly, acknowledging his son's presence with characteristic discomfort. "Merry Christmas Eve, Dad," Noah said softly, placing the wrapped gift beside his father's coffee cup. "I made something for you." His voice carried a mixture of hope and fear, the tone of a child who had learned to expect rejection but couldn't stop trying. William's eyes flickered briefly to the package before returning to his screen. "Christmas is just another day, Noah," he said, his voice flat. "I have important work to finish." But Noah persisted, drawing on reserves of courage that surprised even him. "Maybe we could do something together today." Just for a little while he pulled out a chair, climbing up to sit beside his father. "I helped the cook make Christmas cookies yesterday. They're really good. Or we could watch the Christmas lights in town like we used to." William's hand tightened around his coffee cup. "I told you I'm busy. Go entertain yourself." The words came out sharp, cutting through the air like ice. Noah's fingers traced patterns on the marble countertop, refusing to give up. "Remember when Mom was here? We used to drive around looking at decorations, and she would make hot chocolate with extra marshmallows." His voice trailed off as his father abruptly stood, the chair scraping harshly against the floor. "Don't," William snapped, his face twisting with something between pain and anger. "Don't talk about her. Those days are gone, Noah. The sooner you accept that, the better." Tears welled in Noah's eyes, but he blinked them back. "I'm sorry, Dad, I just miss how things used to be. I miss you." For a moment something flickered in William's eyes, a ghost of the father he used to be, perhaps remembering happier times. But then his phone buzzed, displaying a message that made his face harden once again. "Here," William said, pulling out his wallet and placing several $100 bills on the counter. "Buy yourself whatever you want. Just leave me alone today." Noah stared at the money, feeling its coldness even without touching it. "I don't want money, Dad. I want you, please. Can't we just try? It's Christmas." William turned away, his shoulders rigid. "Christmas is for children who believe in fairy tales, Noah. You need to grow up and understand that the world isn't kind to the weak. Now go to your room. I have important calls to make." Noah slid off the chair, leaving the wrapped gift on the counter. As he walked away, he heard his father's voice starting a business call, discussing profits and losses as if it were any other day. The Christmas tree in his room seemed dimmer when he returned, its lights unable to pierce the growing darkness in his heart. What Noah couldn't know was that his father's coldness masked a terrible inner struggle. The message on William's phone had been from Marcus Sullivan, containing final instructions for what would become the worst betrayal a father could commit. As Noah spent the day alone in his room, writing in his journal and clinging to fading hopes, William Parker was preparing to destroy the last remnants of the family he had once cherished. The snow continued to fall outside, covering the world in white, while inside the mansion, a father and son spent their last hours together in separate solitudes, one choosing a path of unforgivable betrayal, the other holding on to a love that refused to die. As evening fell, William Parker stood in his study, staring at a small vial of clear liquid. Marcus Sullivan's instructions echoed in his mind, make it look natural. No traces. The boy must disappear tonight. His hands trembled as he poured the tasteless poison into a cup of hot chocolate, watching it dissolve completely. In the kitchen, Noah sat at the counter, absently drawing patterns in the condensation of his water glass. He hadn't eaten all day, his stomach too knotted with disappointment. The sound of his father's footsteps made him look up, hope flickering briefly in his eyes. "Here," William said, placing the steaming mug before his son. "I thought, maybe you'd like some hot chocolate." His voice wavered slightly, an unfamiliar note that Noah was too young to recognize as guilt. Noah's face lit up at this small gesture of fatherly care. Just like Mom used to make, he asked, reaching eagerly for the mug. The warmth felt comforting in his cold hands. William watched as his son took the first sip, each swallow driving daggers into what remained of his conscience. Yes, he managed to say, just like she used to make. He turned away, unable to bear the sight of Noah's trusting smile. "It tastes a little different," Noah commented, continuing to drink. "But I'm glad we're having hot chocolate together, Dad. Maybe we could." His voice began to slur, the mug slipping from his increasingly numb fingers. It shattered on the floor, dark liquid spreading like a stain across the pristine tiles. "Dad," Noah's voice was barely a whisper now, confusion and fear mixing in his eyes. "Something's wrong. I feel. I can't." His head lolled forward, body going limp, as the paralytic took effect. William caught his son before he could fall, lifting the small body that suddenly seemed so fragile. Noah's eyes were still open, aware but unable to move or speak. Tears began to roll down his cheeks as he realized what was happening. His father, the one person who should protect him, was betraying him in the worst possible way. The drive to the forest was silent except for the sound of snow hitting the windshield. William kept his eyes fixed on the road, trying not to look in the rearview mirror where he could see Noah's reflection, those blue eyes still watching him, still asking why. The clearing he chose was deep in the forest, far from any paths or houses. As he carried Noah through the deepening snow, the boy's tears had frozen on his face. William laid him down carefully, arranging his limbs as if he were merely putting him to bed. "The world has no place for the weak," William whispered, more to himself than to his son. This is for the best," but his voice cracked on the last word, betraying the lie. Noah could only watch as his father stood up, brushing snow from his expensive coat. In that moment, despite his paralysis, he felt everything, the bitter cold seeping through his clothes, the snow beginning to cover him, and most painfully, the death of every dream he'd ever had about his father's love. William walked back to his car without looking back, each step taking him further from the man he used to be. The sound of the engine starting seemed unnaturally loud in the silent forest, then faded away, leaving Noah alone with only the falling snow for company. As consciousness began to fade, Noah's mind filled with memories, Christmas mornings from happier times, his mother's smile, his father's laugh before it all went wrong. The paralytic was making it hard to think clearly, but one thought remained sharp: his father had chosen to leave him here to die. The snow fell faster now, beginning to cover his small body. In the distance, Christmas lights twinkled through the trees, their warm glow a cruel reminder of the celebration happening in homes across the city. Families were gathering together, sharing love and joy, while he lay abandoned in the darkness. No one could hear the soft whimper that escaped his lips as his consciousness began to fade, or see the tears that continued to freeze on his cheeks. The forest kept its terrible secret as Christmas Eve transformed into a night of unimaginable betrayal. In his last moments of awareness, Noah thought he saw a figure moving through the snow, but he couldn't be sure if it was real or just a dream born of desperate hope. As darkness claimed him, one final thought echoed in his mind: why, Dad? Why? Emily Bennett trudged through the deepening snow, following her usual Christmas Eve patrol route. Years of searching for children in need had taught her to notice the smallest signs of trouble. Tonight something felt different. The wind carried an urgency she couldn't explain, pulling her deeper into the forest than she normally ventured. Her flashlight beam cut through the swirling snow, creating eerie shadows among the trees. The temperature had dropped dangerously low, and her instincts screamed that something was terribly wrong. Then she saw them tire tracks, still visible despite the falling snow, leading off the main road into the forest. "Who would drive out here on Christmas Eve?" she muttered, following the tracks. Her heart pounded with each step, a mother's intuition telling her to hurry. The tracks led to a clearing, and what she saw there made her blood freeze colder than the bitter wind. A small figure lay half buried in the snow, unmoving. Emily ran forward, her medical training kicking in even as her heart threatened to shatter. As she brushed away the snow, she recognized the face beneath it, and her world stopped spinning. "Noah," she whispered, her trembling fingers checking for a pulse. "Oh God, no, 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 no!" Her son lay before her, his lips blue, skin pale as the snow around him. But there was a pulse, weak, thready, but present. Emily noticed immediately that something was wrong beyond the cold. Noah's body was completely rigid, yet his eyes were partially open, aware. Paralytic, she realized, her medical knowledge combining with rising fury as she understood what had happened. "William, what have you done?" Working quickly, she wrapped Noah in her thick emergency blanket, checking his vital signs with practiced efficiency even as tears froze on her cheeks. "Stay with me, sweetheart," she whispered, using the term of endearment she'd been denied for years. "Mama's here now. I won't let you go again." The hospital was 20 minutes away. Emily carried Noah through the snow to her car, her arms aching but refusing to give up. She laid him carefully in the backseat, cranking the heat to full blast. As she drove, she kept glancing in the rearview mirror, watching his chest rise and fall with shallow breaths. "Remember when you were little?" she spoke to fill the silence, her voice thick with emotion. "You used to say that snow was like stars falling from the sky. You'd try to catch them on your tongue, laughing when they melted. You were always such a happy child, so full of wonder." The hospital emergency room erupted into action when Emily burst through the doors with Noah in her arms. "Severe hypothermia," she called out, falling back on her medical training to stay focused. Possible paralytic agent in his system. He's been exposed to sub-zero temperatures for an unknown period. As the medical team worked on Noah, Emily was forced to step back. She watched through the trauma room window, her hands pressed against the glass, every fiber of her being screaming to be at his side. The doctors and nurses moved with urgent efficiency, attaching monitors, starting IV lines, working to save her son's life. Hours passed in an agony of waiting. Emily paced the corridor, torn between her need to stay with Noah and her duty to report what had happened. Finally, the lead doctor emerged, looking tired but relieved. "He's stabilizing," the doctor said. "The paralytic is wearing off, and we're slowly raising his core temperature. He's young and strong, I think he'll make it. But MS, Bennett, this was no accident. Someone did this to him deliberately." Emily nodded, her jaw set with determination. "I know," she replied, her voice hard, "and they will pay for it." But first she looked toward Noah's room, where machines beeped steadily, monitoring his recovery. "Can I sit with him?" she asked, her voice softening. "He shouldn't be alone when he wakes up." The doctor agreed, and Emily took her place beside Noah's bed. She held his small hand, gradually warming between her own, and watched his face for any sign of consciousness. The monitors beeped quietly, a rhythm that matched her silent prayer of thanks that she had found him in time. "I'm here now," she whispered, brushing his hair back from his forehead. "And this time I'm not going anywhere. I promise," as snowflakes continued to fall outside the hospital window. Emily Bennett began her vigil, knowing that this Christmas Eve had changed everything for better or worse. The first week in the hospital passed in a blur of medical tests, police interviews, and slow recovery. Noah drifted in and out of consciousness, but each time he opened his eyes, Emily was there, a constant presence that somehow made the sterile hospital room feel less frightening. Initially, Noah barely spoke, the trauma of his father's betrayal weighing heavily on his young shoulders. The doctors explained that while his body was healing, the emotional wounds would take much longer to mend. But Emily remained patient, sitting beside his bed for hours, reading stories or simply being there in comfortable silence. "Why did you save me?" Noah finally asked one quiet afternoon, his voice barely above a whisper. He was propped up against pillows, absently pushing around the hospital food on his tray. Emily looked up from the book she'd been reading, her heart aching at the pain in his eyes. "Because every child deserves to be protected," she answered softly, "and because no one should be alone on Christmas." "But my dad," Noah's voice cracked, tears welling in his eyes. "He left me there. He wanted me to—" He couldn't finish the sentence, his small body beginning to shake with suppressed sobs. Emily moved quickly to sit on the edge of his bed, gathering him into her arms. For a moment, Noah stiffened, unused to such gentle touch after years of his father's coldness. Then, like a dam breaking, he collapsed against her, crying out years of loneliness and rejection. "It's okay to cry," Emily whispered, rocking him gently. "It's okay to be angry. What happened wasn't your fault. None of it was your fault." As the days passed, a tentative trust began to grow between them. Noah discovered that Emily shared his love of stories, and she would spend hours listening to his imaginative tales, encouraging him to write them down in a journal she brought him. "You have a gift," she told him one day, after he'd shared a particularly moving story about a lost star finding its way home. "Your words have power, Noah. They can help heal not just yourself, but others too." Noah looked at her thoughtfully. "Did you know my mom?" he asked suddenly. Before she died." Emily's hand faltered for a moment as she arranged his pillows. "Why do you ask?" "Sometimes," Noah said slowly, "when you smile or laugh, it reminds me of her. Of what I remember anyway. And you're kind like she was." Emily sat down heavily in the chair beside his bed, her heart racing. "Your mother loved you very much, Noah," she managed to say. "Never doubt that." As Noah grew stronger, Emily began bringing games and art supplies to his room. They would spend afternoons drawing together, or playing chess, or making up stories about the shapes they saw in the clouds outside his window. Slowly, Noah's smile began to return, though it carried a new wisdom that no 9-year-old should have to possess. The hospital staff noticed the change in their young patient. Where once he had been withdrawn and silent, he now engaged with his therapists, worked hard at his physical recovery, and even managed to bring smiles to other children in the pediatric ward with his stories. "You're good with him," Dr. Sarah Matthews commented to Emily one evening. "Have you considered becoming his foster parent? He'll need somewhere to go once he's released, and given the circumstances." Emily's heart leaped at the possibility, even as fear gripped her. "Do you think they'd let me?" she asked quietly. "I'm single. I live in a small house." "You're stable, you work in child protection, and most importantly, you've already formed a bond with him," Dr. Matthews replied. "I'd be happy to recommend it." That night, after Noah had fallen asleep, Emily stood at his window, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance. She thought about the box of newspaper clippings hidden in her house, about the years of watching him from afar, about the secret she carried that could either heal or destroy the fragile trust they'd built. "MS." Bennett Noah's sleepy voice called from the bed. "Are you still there?" "I'm here," she answered, returning to his side. "I'll always be here." "Good," he murmured, already drifting back to sleep. "I don't want to be alone anymore." Emily gently tucked the blanket around him, brushing his hair back from his forehead in a gesture that felt as natural as breathing. "You won't be," she promised, her voice thick with emotion. "Never again." As Noah slept peacefully for the first time since his ordeal, Emily began to hope that perhaps fate had given them both a second chance. What she couldn't know was that their journey together was just beginning, and that the truth she carried would soon test the very foundation of trust they were building. In the penthouse suite of the city's most exclusive hotel, William Parker sat across from Marcus Sullivan, his hands trembling slightly as he poured another drink. The news of Noah's survival had reached them both, and Marcus's cold fury filled the room like poison gas. "You had one simple task," Marcus said, his grey hair catching the lamplight as he leaned forward. "Dispose of the boy. Clean, simple. Yet here we are, William, dealing with a very much alive problem and a witness who could destroy everything we've built." William stared into his glass, seeing his reflection fractured in the amber liquid. "He's my son, Marcus, my own flesh and blood. I did what you asked, I left him there. How was I to know someone would find him?" Marcus's laugh was sharp and without humor. "Your son? The same son you've ignored for years? Don't pretend to have paternal feelings now, William. It's rather late for that." He stood, walking to the window overlooking the city. "Do you know who found him? Emily Bennett. Or should I say, Emily Parker, your supposedly dead wife." The glass slipped from William's hand, shattering on the expensive hardwood floor. "That's impossible. Emily left." "You said she." "I said what you needed to hear." Marcus cut in smoothly, "just as I told her what she needed to hear to stay away. But now she's back, and she has your son. Do you understand what this means?" William's mind raced through memories: Emily's supposed death, the years of guilt, the growing distance from Noah. "You've been manipulating me from the start," he whispered, the truth finally dawning. "The accident, Emily's disappearance, all of it." "Of course," Marcus replied, turning to face him with a predatory smile. "You were perfect for our organization, ambitious, vulnerable, and so easily controlled by threats to your precious family. Emily discovered too much, so she had to go. The boy was your weakness, so we used him against you. Simple psychology, really." William stood abruptly, anger finally breaking through his fear. "I've given you everything: my soul, my family, my son. What more do you want?" Marcus's expression hardened. "What I want, William, is for you to fix this mess. Emily knows too much, and now she has Noah. They both need to disappear, permanently this time, and you're going to help make that happen." "No," William said, his voice stronger than he felt. "I won't hurt them again. I can't." Marcus pulled an envelope from his jacket and tossed it onto the table. Photographs spilled out: surveillance shots of William at various Sons of Wealth meetings, documents bearing his signature, evidence of years of criminal activity. "You don't have a choice," Marcus said softly. "You're in too deep. One phone call, and these go to the police. Your empire crumbles, and you spend the rest of your life in prison. Is that what you want?" William sank back into his chair, the fight draining from him. "What do you want me to do?" "For now, nothing," Marcus replied, gathering the photos. "Stay away from the hospital. Make no attempt to contact Noah. Let Emily think she's won. I'll handle the rest." As William left the hotel that night, he felt the last pieces of his humanity slipping away. The city lights blurred through his tears as he drove aimlessly, haunted by the memory of Noah's trusting face as he drank the poisoned hot chocolate. In his mansion, William walked through empty rooms that echoed with the ghosts of happier times. He found himself in Noah's room, untouched since that fateful night. A wrapped Christmas present still sat on the desk, the book of stories Noah had tried to give him. With trembling hands, William unwrapped it. Page after page of carefully drawn pictures and heartfelt words revealed the soul of the son he had betrayed. On the last page, Noah had written, "Dear Dad, I know you're still in there somewhere. I'll never stop believing in you. Love, Noah." William sank to his knees, clutching the book to his chest as sobs racked his body. For the first time, he saw clearly what he had become, what Marcus Sullivan had turned him into. But was it too late for redemption? Could he find the strength to stand against Marcus and protect what remained of his family? As dawn broke over the city, William Parker made a decision. He would gather evidence against Marcus and the Sons of Wealth, whatever the cost. He owed it to Noah, to Emily, to the man he used to be. But Marcus Sullivan was watching, and the game they were about to play would have deadly stakes. The Sons of Wealth operated from a Victorian mansion on the outskirts of the city, its Gothic architecture a fitting facade for the darkness within. Behind ornate gates and manicured gardens, Marcus Sullivan presided over an organization that had spent decades perfecting the art of corruption. In the mansion's wood-paneled study, Marcus reviewed files on a dozen prominent families. Each folder contained carefully curated evidence of crimes, weaknesses and pressure points, ammunition for blackmail that kept the city's elite under his control. The folder marked Parker lay open on his desk, recently updated with photos of Emily and Noah at the hospital. Sir, his assistant interrupted. "The board members have arrived for the emergency meeting." Marcus closed the folder with a practiced smile. "Show them to the main hall. And Sarah, make sure we're not disturbed." The main hall, with its crystal chandeliers and oil paintings of past leaders, filled with men in expensive suits, their faces masks of concern. These were the true powers behind the Sons of Wealth: judges, politicians, business leaders, all bound together by shared secrets and mutual destruction. "Gentlemen," Marcus began, taking his place at the head of the long table. "We have a situation. The Parker boy lives and his mother has resurfaced. Our entire operation is at risk." Judge Hamilton, a stern-faced man who had sentenced countless rivals to prison, spoke first. "How much does Emily Parker know?" "Everything," Marcus replied grimly. "She was here 3 years ago, discovered our records, saw our methods. She knows about the trafficking, the laundering, the blackmail, all of it." The room erupted in nervous murmurs. These men had built their fortunes on the foundation of the Sons of Wealth's protection. The thought of exposure terrified them more than any moral consequence. "But why didn't we eliminate her then?" demanded Richard Collins, a bank president whose signature approved their illegal transactions. Marcus's smile turned cold. "Because she was more valuable as leverage over William. Her death kept him in line and her silence was bought with threats against her son." But now he gestured to photos of Emily and Noah projected on the wall. "Now she has nothing left to lose." "Then eliminate them both," suggested Senator Brooks, his political career built on bribes and favors. "Make it look like an accident." "It's not that simple anymore," Marcus countered. "The police are involved, and Emily has undoubtedly prepared evidence to be released if anything happens to them. We need to be creative." He unveiled his plan, explaining how they would use William's apparent suicide to discredit any evidence Emily might have. The boy would become a ward of the state, placed with a family under their control. Emily would be framed for William's death, her credibility destroyed. As the men nodded in approval, none noticed the small red light blinking beneath the table, William Parker's phone, recording everything. He sat silently in his usual place, his face a careful mask, while his device captured the evidence that could bring down the entire organization. What Marcus didn't know was that William had also been gathering his own evidence for weeks: documents, recordings, bank records. Each piece carefully copied and hidden in secure locations. His betrayal of Noah had broken something in him, awakening a desperate need for redemption. But the sons of wealth had eyes everywhere. As the meeting concluded, Marcus's assistant handed him a note. His eyes narrowed as he read it, then looked at William with dangerous speculation. "William," Marcus called as the others filed out. "Stay a moment, won't you?" The room emptied until only the two men remained. Marcus walked to a cabinet, poured 2 drinks, and handed one to William. "You've been busy lately," he said casually. "Making copies, taking pictures, recording conversations, perhaps." William's hand tightened on his glass. "I don't know what you mean." "Come now," Marcus smiled, but his eyes were deadly. "Did you really think we wouldn't notice? That we wouldn't be watching? Your sudden attack of conscience is touching, but ultimately futile." He pressed a button, and hidden doors opened to reveal armed guards. "You see, William, the Sons of Wealth has survived for generations because we understand one simple truth: everyone has a breaking point. We found yours in your family. Now you're going to tell us where you've hidden the evidence. Or we'll find out just how much more pain that breaking point can take." As the guards advanced, William realized he had underestimated Marcus once again. But this time he had a contingency plan. He just hoped Emily would understand the message he'd sent her that morning: a copy of Noah's storybook with coordinates hidden in the margins of every page. The fate of everything, his redemption, his family's safety, the destruction of the Sons of Wealth, now rested in the hands of the woman he had wronged so deeply. As Marcus's men seized him, William closed his eyes and prayed he had done enough to make amends. Emily sat in her small kitchen, staring at the copy of Noah's storybook that had arrived that morning. William's desperate message, hidden in the margins, weighed heavily on her mind. Outside, snow was falling again, reminding her of the night she found Noah. The hospital had released him into her temporary care yesterday, and now he slept peacefully in the spare room she'd hurriedly prepared. "Tell him the truth," her conscience whispered. Every moment with Noah was both a blessing and torture, watching him trust her, bond with her, while carrying the secret that could shatter their fragile new relationship. Her fingers traced the spine of the book, feeling the slight bumps where William had pressed the coordinates into the pages. The sound of footsteps made her look up. Noah stood in the doorway, sleep-tousled and vulnerable in the oversized pajamas she'd bought him. "Bad dream?" she asked softly, quickly sliding the book under some papers. "I keep seeing the snow," he admitted, wrapping his arms around himself, "and feeling the cold." And he didn't finish, but Emily understood. The betrayal was still too raw to voice. "Come here," she said, opening her arms. Noah hesitated only a moment before coming to her, allowing himself to be held. Emily's heart ached with the perfect fit of him against her shoulder, exactly as he had been as a toddler, before everything went wrong. "Miss Bennett," Noah's voice was muffled against her sweater. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything," she replied, though fear gripped her heart. "Why do you look at me sometimes like you're about to cry?" His question was innocent, but it cut straight to her core. "And why do you know exactly how I like my hot chocolate, with 3 marshmallows and a tiny bit of cinnamon, just like?" Emily's breath caught. "Just like what, Noah?" "Just like my mom used to make it." He pulled back slightly, looking at her with those searching blue eyes, her eyes. "Sometimes you do things, or say things, and it's like you've known me forever." Emily felt tears threatening to fall. The truth sat on her tongue, demanding to be spoken, but fear held it back: fear of Marcus Sullivan's threats, fear of Noah's rejection, fear of destroying the trust they'd built. "I knew your mother," she said finally, choosing a partial truth. "We were very close." Noah's eyes widened. "You did? Dad never talked about her friends, could you? Would you tell me about her?" Emily swallowed hard. "She loved you more than anything in the world," she began, her voice trembling. "She used to sing to you every night. Somewhere Over the Rainbow was your favorite. You would only fall asleep if she sang it 3 times. I remember that song, Noah whispered. I thought I'd dreamed it. She kept every drawing you made, every story you told. She had this special box where she saved everything, ticket stubs from your first movie, the tiny shoes you wore when you learned to walk. How do you know all this? Noah asked, his voice filled with wonder and growing suspicion. Emily stood abruptly, moving to the window. It's late, she said, her voice hoarse. You should try to get some sleep. Please, Noah said, following her. Tell me more about her. Was she happy? Did she really die in an accident? The question hung in the air like frost. Emily pressed her forehead against the cold glass, seeing her reflection overlaid with Noah's in the window, the same eyes, the same curve of the jaw. How much longer could she keep this secret? Your mother made choices, she said carefully, that haunt her every day. Choices she thought would protect you, but ended up causing so much pain. What do you mean? Noah's voice sharpened with understanding beyond his years. Miss Bennet, why are you crying? Emily turned to face him, tears now flowing freely. The weight of William's hidden message, the threats from Marcus Sullivan, the years of separation, it all pressed down on her like a physical force. Because I never wanted to leave you, she whispered, the truth finally breaking free. Because watching you grow up from a distance has been the worst kind of torture. Because every time you call me MS, Bennett instead of Mom, it breaks my heart all over again. The silence that followed was deafening. Noah stood frozen, his face a kaleidoscope of emotions, confusion, disbelief, hurt, hope. No, he said, backing away. No, you're lying. My mom is dead, Dad said. Your father said what Marcus Sullivan told him to say, Emily replied, her voice cracking. I'm not dead, Noah. I'm right here. I've always been here, watching over you, waiting for a chance to keep you safe. Noah bumped into the kitchen counter, his hands gripping the edge. But why? Why did you leave me? Why didn't you take me with you? Emily took a step toward him, stopping when he flinched. Because Marcus threatened to kill you if I didn't disappear. Because I thought leaving was the only way to protect you. I was wrong, Noah. So wrong. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it up to you, if you'll let me. The clock on the wall ticked loudly in the silence that followed. Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering the world in white, while inside a mother and son stood on the precipice of a truth that could either heal or destroy them both. The days following Emily's revelation were filled with a delicate dance of emotions. Noah retreated into himself initially, spending hours in his room with only his journal for company. The truth about his mother's identity had shaken his world once again, leaving him struggling to process this new reality. In his journal, Noah poured out his confusion and pain through stories and drawings. One particular story, about a lost bird finding its way back to its nest, became his way of understanding his mother's return. He wrote about the bird's journey through storms and darkness, about its fear of rejection, and about the nest that had never stopped waiting. Emily gave him space but remained a constant presence. She left plates of his favorite foods outside his door, along with books she thought he might enjoy. Sometimes, late at night, she could hear him crying, and it took every ounce of her strength not to rush in and hold him. She knew he needed time to heal on his own terms. The breakthrough came unexpectedly one morning. Noah emerged from his room clutching his journal, dark circles under his eyes suggesting a sleepless night. I wrote something, he said quietly. Would you read it? Emily sat at the kitchen table, carefully taking the worn notebook. Noah had written a letter, not to MS Bennett, but to Mom. As she read, tears began to fall on the pages. Dear Mom, I'm angry that you left. I'm angry that you didn't take me with you. I'm angry that you watched me from far away instead of being with me. But I'm also angry at Marcus for making you choose. I'm angry at Dad for lying. And I'm tired of being angry. I remember things now. I remember your voice singing me to sleep. I remember how you used to cut the crusts off my sandwiches and draw little hearts on my lunch bags. I remember feeling safe and loved. I don't know how to be your son again. I don't know if I can trust that you won't leave, but I want to try, because even when I didn't know who you were, you saved my life. You've been taking care of me. And maybe that's what matters most. Can we start over? Not as MS, Bennett and Noah, but as mother and son. It might take time, but I think my heart remembers you, even if my mind is still confused. Love. Noah. Emily looked up to find Noah watching her intently. "Oh, sweetheart," she breathed, opening her arms. This time Noah didn't hesitate. He ran to her, burying his face in her shoulder as they both cried. "I missed you so much," he sobbed. "Every birthday, every Christmas, every time something good or bad happened, I missed you." "I missed you too," my beautiful boy, Emily whispered, holding him tight. "Every single day, every moment." From that day forward, their healing began in earnest. Noah started talking about his memories, asking questions about the years they'd been apart. Emily answered everything honestly, no matter how painful. They began creating new traditions while honoring old ones: Sunday morning pancakes, bedtime stories, and yes, hot chocolate with 3 marshmallows and a sprinkle of cinnamon. Noah's nightmares about the snow began to fade, replaced by dreams of warmth and safety. He started writing more, his stories now filled with themes of reunion and redemption. His therapist noted the positive changes, commenting on his increasing ability to process trauma through creativity. One evening, as they sat together on the porch swing, Noah asked the question Emily had been dreading: "Do you think Dad ever loved me?" Emily pulled him closer. "Your father loves you, Noah, but he's trapped in a web of his own making, controlled by fear and guilt. That doesn't excuse what he did, but I believe there's still good in him." Like in Star Wars, Noah asked, a hint of his old humor returning, where Darth Vader turns good in the end. Emily laughed softly. "Something like that. People can change, sweetheart. They can find their way back to the light." As weeks passed, Noah began to flourish. His teachers reported increased participation in class, and he even joined a creative writing club. The walls of his room gradually filled with new drawings, not just of his stories, but of memories his mother reading to him, their first new Christmas tree together, simple moments of rebuilding their bond. Yet beneath their growing happiness lurked the shadow of Marcus Sullivan and the Sons of Wealth. Emily knew they were being watched, knew that their precious healing time was borrowed. William's hidden message in the storybook remained a constant reminder of the danger they faced. But for now, she focused on helping her son heal, on being the mother she'd been forced to stop being. Each smile, each hug, each "I love you," Mum was a treasure she stored in her heart, preparing for whatever storm was coming. For Noah had taught her something profound through his own healing process. Love, once reclaimed, could become an unshakable fortress against any darkness that tried to destroy it. In the depths of the Sons of Wealth mansion, William Parker sat in a darkened room, his once immaculate suit now wrinkled and stained. 3 days had passed since Marcus's men had begun their questioning about the hidden evidence. His body ached from their methods, but it was the weight of his guilt that truly crushed him. Through the window he could see Christmas decorations still adorning the city streets. Each twinkling light reminded him of Noah's hopeful face that last morning, of the hot chocolate he had poisoned, of the trust he had destroyed. The evidence he had gathered against Marcus and the organization was well hidden, but each passing hour made him question if his attempt at redemption would be enough. Comfortable, William Marcus entered the room, carrying a tablet. "I thought you might like to see how your family is doing." He turned the screen toward William, showing surveillance footage of Emily and Noah walking together, smiling, healing. "Touching," isn't it? The reunion you could have prevented if you'd just followed orders. William strained against his restraints, his voice hoarse. "Leave them alone, Marcus. You've already taken everything from me." "Not quite everything," Marcus replied, his smile cold. "You still have your reputation, your freedom, at least officially. But that could change." He placed a document on the table. "Sign this confession. Take full responsibility for all the organization's crimes. Do that, and perhaps your son keeps his mother this time." The confession was comprehensive, designed to protect every member of the Sons of Wealth while condemning William completely. His hands trembled as he read through pages of crimes, some he had committed, others he hadn't. "And if I refuse?" William asked, though he already knew the answer. Marcus's expression hardened. "Then Emily has a tragic accident, and Noah. Well, let's just say second attempts often succeed where first ones fail." The pen felt heavy in William's hand as he stared at the signature line. Images flashed through his mind: Emily's face when she discovered the organization's true nature, Noah's trust as he drank the poisoned hot chocolate, the years of compromise that had led him here. "You know what your problem is," William Marcus said, pacing slowly. "You never understood that sentiment is weakness. Love, family, conscience, these are chains that hold men back from true power. I tried to teach you that, but you never quite learned." "You're wrong," William whispered, his voice gaining strength. "Love isn't weakness. I was weak when I betrayed my family, when I chose power over them, but not anymore." In one swift motion, William grabbed the pen and stabbed it into Marcus's hand, pinning it to the table. The older man's scream brought guards running, but William had already activated the emergency signal hidden in his watch, a final resort that would send all his evidence to the FBI. The beating that followed was severe, but William barely felt it. He thought, instead of Noah's journal, of the coordinates hidden in its pages that would lead Emily to the rest of the evidence. He thought of his son's capacity for love, even after everything. He thought of Emily's strength in protecting their child when he had failed. Hours later, lying on the floor of his makeshift cell, William heard Marcus ordering his men to finish it. They were going to kill him, make it look like suicide. His confession would be found, and the Sons of Wealth would continue their reign of corruption. But William smiled through bloody lips, knowing something they didn't. The evidence wasn't just in one place, it was everywhere. In safety deposit boxes across the city, in encrypted files set to release automatically, in documents already making their way to authorities. His death wouldn't silence the truth, it would unleash it. As footsteps approached his cell, William thought of Noah. "I'm sorry," he whispered to the darkness. "I should have been stronger sooner. I should have been the father you deserved." A tear rolled down his cheek as he heard the door open. "Please forgive me." The guards entered, their faces grim. But before they could reach him, alarms began blaring throughout the mansion. Shouts and running footsteps echoed in the corridors. William's evidence had begun its work, and the mighty Sons of Wealth were about to fall. In his final moments of consciousness, as chaos erupted around him, William felt a strange peace. He had failed his family in life, but perhaps in death, he could give them the freedom and safety they deserved. His last thought was of Noah's smile from happier days, and he prayed his son would understand that even the darkest heart could find its way back to love. Marcus Sullivan stood before the antique mirror in his study, adjusting his tie with practiced precision. On his desk lay the morning newspaper, its headline screaming about William Parker's suicide and allegations of corporate fraud. Everything was proceeding according to plan, except for one loose end: Emily Bennett and her son. The intercom buzzed. "Sir, the surveillance team reports Mrs. Parker and the boy are following their usual morning routine. She's preparing to take him to school." Marcus smiled coldly at his reflection. "Perfect. Tell Johnson to proceed as planned. And Sarah, make sure there are no witnesses." Across town, Emily was helping Noah pack his school bag, both of them unaware of the danger approaching. The morning sunlight streamed through the kitchen windows, making the scene appear deceptively peaceful. Mum, Noah said, the words still new and precious on his tongue. Did you see the newspaper? About Dad. Emily's hands faltered as she packed Noah's lunch. Yes, sweetheart. But remember what we discussed sometimes, the truth is hidden behind what people want us to see. Before Noah could respond, the doorbell rang. Emily froze, her instincts screaming danger. Noah, go to your room. Use the emergency exit we practiced. Don't come out until I call you. But Mum. Now, Noah, the urgency in her voice left no room for argument. The doorbell rang again, followed by a familiar voice. Emily? It's Sarah from the Advocacy Center. There's an emergency with one of your cases. Emily's shoulders relaxed slightly. Sarah was a trusted colleague. She opened the door, only to find Sarah's face twisted with guilt as Marcus Sullivan stepped out from behind her. Hello, Emily, Marcus said smoothly. Or should I say Mrs. Parker? We have some unfinished business to discuss. Two men pushed past her into the house. Emily backed away, her mind racing. Noah, run, she screamed, hoping he had already reached the emergency exit. Oh, there's no need for dramatics, Marcus said, settling into a kitchen chair as if he were a welcome guest. Sarah here has been keeping me informed about your little domestic arrangement for months. Quite touching, really. The prodigal mother returns. Emily's eyes darted to Sarah, who couldn't meet her gaze. How long, she demanded. How long have you been working for him? Long enough, Marcus answered for her. Long enough to know every move you've made, every piece of evidence you've gathered, every attempt at building a case against me. He pulled out a gun, laying it casually on the table. Now, where is William's evidence? I don't know what you're talking about, Emily replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Marcus sighed theatrically. Emily, always so protective. William's dead, by the way, properly this time. No miraculous survival like your boy managed. Speaking of which, he nodded to his men, who began searching the house. He's not here, Emily said, praying Noah had escaped. He's already at school. Lying doesn't suit you, my dear. We watched him enter the house with you 20 minutes ago. Marcus stood, approaching her with predatory grace. But no matter. He'll surface eventually, especially when he hears his mother's been in an unfortunate accident. The men returned, shaking their heads. The emergency exit stood open, the room empty. Marcus's face darkened with rage. Take her, he ordered. The boy will come looking for his mother eventually. And this time there won't be any last-minute rescues. As the men grabbed her, Emily fought with everything she had, managing to knock over a lamp that shattered on the floor. In the chaos, she saw a small figure through the window, Noah, hiding in the treehouse they had built together, watching with terrified eyes. She forced herself to go limp, catching Noah's gaze for a split second. She blinked twice, their secret signal for get help, then a cloth was pressed over her mouth, and darkness claimed her. When she awoke, she found herself in a luxuriously appointed room, her wrists bound to a chair with silk scarves, a mockery of gentility. Marcus sat across from her, reading William's confession aloud. Your husband was weak, he said, closing the document. He thought gathering evidence would save him, would somehow make up for his failures as a father and husband. But in the end, he died just as pathetically as he lived. Emily lifted her chin defiantly. You're wrong about William. He was stronger than you know. Marcus laughed. Strong? He poisoned his own son for money. He let you take the blame for everything. He died alone and broken, just as you will. No, Emily replied, a small smile playing at her lips. He died protecting his family. And you've already lost, Marcus, you just don't know it yet. Marcus leaned forward, his facade of civilization slipping. Lost? I've won, Emily. William's dead, you're here, and soon your precious boy will join you. The Sons of Wealth will continue, as it has for generations. But Emily's smile didn't waver, because she knew something Marcus didn't know. Had seen her signal, and their plan was already in motion. The question was, could she stay alive long enough for it to work? From his hiding place in the treehouse, Noah watched helplessly as the men dragged his unconscious mother into a black SUV. His hands clutched his father's storybook, the one thing his mother had insisted he always keep close. Now, trembling with fear and adrenaline, he understood why. Opening the book with shaking fingers, Noah began examining the margins more carefully. His father's hidden message wasn't just coordinates, it was a complete plan. Tiny numbers and letters, carefully pressed into the paper, formed a complex set of instructions. But what caught his eye was a phone number, followed by 3 words: "Trust Detective Matthews." Noah pulled out the emergency phone his mother had given him weeks ago. They had practiced this scenario, but the reality was far more terrifying. Dialing the number, he held his breath until a gruff voice answered. "Detective Matthews." "My mum's been taken," Noah burst out, his voice cracking. "The bad men came to our house and Sarah helped them, and they took her away in a black car. And—" "Slow down, son," the detective cut in. "Is this Noah Parker?" "Yes, please, you have to help. They said my dad is dead, and now they have my mom, and—" "Listen carefully," Noah Matthews interrupted. "Your mother and I have been working together for months. She told me this might happen. Are you in the treehouse?" Noah's eyes widened. "How did you know?" "Because your mother planned for everything." "Stay there. I'm sending officers to get you. But first I need you to look at page 23 of your father's book. There's something important there." Noah flipped to the page with trembling hands. A small key fell out, taped to the margin. "I found a key." "Good. That key opens a safety deposit box at First National Bank. Your father left evidence there that can bring down Marcus Sullivan and the Sons of Wealth. But we need both the key and the access code." "What's the code?" Noah asked, clutching the key tightly. "That's the thing, Noah. Only you can figure it out. Your father left a note saying Noah knows the song that opens doors. Does that mean anything to you?" Noah's breath caught. Memories flooded back, his mother singing "Somewhere Over the Rainbow" 3 times every night, the way she'd told him about it when she revealed her identity. The song. Mum used to sing it to me. 3 times every night. The numbers, Noah. What are the numbers? Noah closed his eyes, remembering. She said, I wouldn't sleep unless she sang it 3 times. 3. Somewhere. Over his eyes snapped open. 377. That's it. Those were the numbers on my old music box. You're sure? Yes. Mum told me about it when she told me who she really was. It was our special thing. The sound of sirens approached in the distance. Officers are almost there, Noah. Stay hidden until you see Detective Sarah Martinez. She'll show you her badge. It has a small rainbow sticker on the back. Don't trust anyone else. As Noah waited, clutching the book and key, he thought about his parents. His father, who had tried to kill him but had also left him the means to make things right. His mother, who had given up everything to protect him and was now paying the price again. Detective Martinez found him 20 minutes later, her badge exactly as described. As they drove to the bank, Noah stared out the window at the city rushing by, his young mind trying to process everything that had happened. Your mom is very brave, Martinez said softly. She's been helping us build a case against Marcus Sullivan for months. And your father? In the end, he chose to do the right thing. Can we save her? Noah asked, his voice small. Martinez glanced at him in the rearview mirror. With your help, we can. But Noah, you need to be brave too. What we're about to do is very dangerous. At the bank, Noah's hands shook as he inserted the key into the safety deposit box. The code worked 377, and inside they found USB drives, documents, and a letter addressed to him. "Dear Noah," it began in his father's handwriting. "But if you're reading this, then I've probably died trying to make things right. I don't deserve your forgiveness for what I did, but I hope this helps protect you and your mother. The evidence here will destroy Marcus Sullivan and the Sons of Wealth, but only if it's delivered to the right people at the right time. Trust your mother. She never stopped fighting for you, even when I was too weak to fight for either of you. I love you, son. I'm sorry I forgot that love was stronger than fear." Tears rolled down Noah's cheeks as Detective Martinez secured the evidence. His father had failed him terribly, but in the end he'd tried to fix it. Now Noah had to be strong for his mother, for justice, and for the father who had finally chosen love over fear. "Let's go save your mom," Martinez said, leading him back to the car. "Are you ready?" Noah squared his shoulders, thinking of his mother's courage and his father's sacrifice. "Yes," he said firmly, "I'm ready." The Victorian mansion of the Sons of Wealth loomed against the darkening sky, its Gothic architecture more menacing than ever. Inside, Marcus Sullivan paced the main hall, his composure cracking as reports came in about police movements throughout the city. Emily, still bound to the chair, watched him with quiet satisfaction. "Something wrong, Marcus?" she asked, noting his agitation. "Your perfect plan not working out." Marcus whirled on her, his legendary control slipping. "Where is the boy? What have you done?" "What any mother would do," Emily replied calmly. "I protected my son, something you wouldn't understand with your empty life of power and control." Before Marcus could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the mansion. Security cameras showed police vehicles approaching from all directions, their lights painting the snow-covered grounds in red and blue. So one of his men burst in. "They have warrants, multiple warrants, and they have the evidence from William's safety deposit box." Marcus's face contorted with rage. He grabbed Emily's hair, pulling her head back. "What did you do? How did they get the access code?" Emily laughed softly, despite the pain. "You never understood, did you? William and I may have failed as husband and wife, but we never failed as parents. We knew Noah would figure it out. Love leaves clues that people like you can never see." Outside, Detective Matthews coordinated the raid team. Beside him in the command vehicle, Noah sat with Detective Martinez, monitoring the surveillance feeds. His heart leaped when he saw his mother on one of the screens. "There," he pointed. "In the main hall. Mom's alive." "Stay here," Martinez ordered, but Noah shook his head. "I have to go in. Mom needs to know I'm okay. Please, you can protect me." After a tense discussion, they agreed to let Noah approach the mansion with Matthews, surrounded by protective officers. As they reached the front steps, Noah's voice rang out through the bullhorn they gave him. Marcus Sullivan, his young voice carried across the grounds. "I have the evidence. All of it. Let my mother go, and maybe the judge will be lenient." Inside, Marcus dragged Emily to the window. They watched as Noah stood bravely in the spotlight, William's book clutched to his chest. "Brave boy," Marcus sneered. Just like his father thought he was being brave. "Look how that ended." He pressed a gun to Emily's temple. "Perhaps history should repeat itself. The brave die young, after all." "No," Emily said with sudden strength. "History isn't repeating. It's ending your history of destruction and pain. Noah isn't just brave, he's everything you never were. He understands love, loyalty, forgiveness. That's why you'll lose." As if to prove her words, the mansion's power suddenly cut out, plunging everything into darkness. In the confusion, Emily made her move. She'd been working on her bonds, and now she threw herself sideways, knocking both of them to the ground. The gun skittered across the floor. The next few minutes were chaos. Police breached the building from multiple points. Marcus's men, realizing their defeat, began surrendering. But Marcus himself scrambled for the gun, his face twisted with madness. "If I'm going down," he snarled, aiming at Emily, "I'm taking you with me." No, Noah's voice rang out. He had slipped away from the officers and now stood in the doorway, William's book held out like a shield. "You can't hurt us anymore." Dad made sure of that. Marcus turned toward Noah, his gun wavering. "Your father was a coward who died alone." "You're wrong," Noah said, his voice steady. "My father died protecting us. He left us the truth. He chose love in the end. That's not cowardice, that's real strength." Emily took advantage of Marcus's distraction, tackling him just as Detective Matthews and his team burst in. The gun went off, the shot going wild, and Marcus Sullivan, the mighty leader of the Sons of Wealth, was finally brought down. As officers led Marcus away in handcuffs, Noah ran to his mother. They held each other tightly, both crying and laughing at the same time. "My brave, brilliant boy," Emily whispered, covering his face with kisses. "How did you know the code? How did you figure it out?" "The song," Mum, Noah said, smiling through his tears. "Our song. 3 times every night, remember? Dad knew that only love could open that door." Later, as they sat wrapped in blankets in the back of an ambulance, Noah opened William's book one last time. There, on the final page, they found a message they hadn't seen before. "Emily and Noah, I'm sorry for every moment of pain I caused you, but know this love truly is stronger than fear. Noah proved that in the snow. Emily proved it every day she watched over him. And maybe, in the end, I proved it too. Be happy, be free, be together, William." Mother and son held each other as snow began to fall gently around them. The Sons of Wealth mansion, now swarming with police and FBI agents, stood as a testament to power corrupted. But here, in this moment of reunion and justice, love had finally won. "Let's go home," Emily said softly, hugging Noah close. "We have a lot of lost time to make up for." Noah nodded, clutching both the book and his mother's hand. "And maybe we can remember Dad too. Not just the bad parts, but the good ones." "Yes, sweetheart," Emily replied, kissing his forehead. "We'll remember all of it. Because that's what real love does. It remembers, it forgives, and it heals." The windowless room in the Sons of Wealth mansion's basement felt like a tomb. Emily sat bound to a chair, her body aching from Marcus's interrogation methods. The elegant surroundings, Persian rugs, antique furniture, crystal decanters only made the brutality more obscene. "I must admit," Emily, Marcus said, wiping blood from his signet ring, "your resilience is impressive. Most people break much sooner." He poured himself a drink, the crystal catching the dim light. "But then, you've always been stubborn. It's why William was so easily manipulated. He never had your strength." Emily spat blood onto the expensive carpet. "Is that what you tell yourself, Marcus? That you're strong? Strong men don't hurt children. They don't destroy families." Marcus's practiced smile faltered. "Families. You abandoned yours, left your son to be raised by that weak fool William. And now look, the boy's probably frozen to death in some alley, running scared and alone." "You don't know my son," Emily replied, her voice steady despite her split lip. "You never did. That's why you'll fail." Marcus signaled to his men. They wheeled in a TV monitor showing surveillance footage of the city streets. "Let's watch together, shall we? Every police camera, every traffic light will find him. And this time, there won't be any miraculous rescues." Hours passed as Marcus forced Emily to watch the screens, waiting for a glimpse of Noah. Each moment was torture, not knowing if her son was safe, if he had understood her signal, if he had found the evidence William had hidden. "You know what fascinates me," Marcus mused, refilling his glass. "How you people cling to love like it's some kind of shield. William loved you, yet he chose power. He loved Noah, yet he left him to die in the snow. Love is weakness, Emily. It's what let me control him, and now it's what will destroy you." Emily closed her eyes, remembering Noah's face as she read him stories, the way his small hand felt in hers, his voice calling her mum for the first time. "You're wrong," she whispered. "Love is why you'll lose. Because you don't understand it, you can't predict it, you can't control it." Rage flashed across Marcus's face. He grabbed her jaw, forcing her to look at him. "Control is all that matters in this world. Your husband understood that in the end. Why do you think he chose us over you?" "Did he?" Emily asked softly. "Then why did he leave evidence against you? Why did he make sure Noah would find it? William chose love in the end, Marcus. He chose redemption." The slap echoed through the room, but Emily barely felt it. She was thinking of Noah, praying he had made it to Detective Matthews, that her years of preparation hadn't been in vain. Marcus leaned close, his expensive cologne unable to mask the stench of cruelty. "Tell me where the evidence is, Emily. Tell me, and maybe I'll let you see your son one last time before you both die." Emily met his gaze steadily. "You still don't understand. You've already lost. Every moment you keep me here is another moment for the truth to spread. William made sure of that." Something in her tone made Marcus pause. He studied her face, seeing not fear but a calm certainty that shook his confidence. Before he could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the mansion. So one of his men burst in. Police. They're surrounding the building. Marcus's composure cracked. He grabbed Emily's hair, pulling her head back. "What did you do? How did they find us?" Emily smiled through bloodied lips. "I told you love is stronger than fear. Noah figured it out, just like I knew he would, just like William knew he would." As chaos erupted above them, Emily closed her eyes and began humming softly somewhere over the rainbow the lullaby she had sung to Noah every night. 3 times, always 3 times. The song that had become their secret code, their bridge across years of separation. "You're insane," Marcus snarled, but there was fear in his voice now. "No," Emily replied calmly. "I'm a mother, and you're about to learn what that really means." The sound of breaking glass and shouting grew closer. Emily continued humming, each note a prayer that Noah was safe, a thank you to William for his final act of redemption, and a promise that love would triumph over the darkness that had tried to destroy their family. The police command center hummed with activity as Noah paced anxiously, William's storybook clutched to his chest. Detective Matthews and his team pored over maps and surveillance footage, tracking possible locations where Marcus might have taken Emily. "The mansion has multiple underground levels," Matthews explained, pointing to architectural plans spread across the table. "Marcus could have her in any of them. We need to be precise, one wrong move and—" Noah stepped forward, his young face set with determination. "I think I know where she is. Look at this." He opened the storybook to a page where his father had drawn a detailed floor plan, disguised as part of the story's illustration. "Dad marked this room. See the 3 stars? Mom always sang my lullaby 3 times. The detectives exchanged glances, impressed by the boy's insight. The wine cellar, Martinez said, studying the drawing. "It's been converted into some kind of interrogation room." "We need to hurry," Noah urged, his voice trembling. "Marcus is going to hurt her. I heard him say so when they took her." His hands shook as he traced the path to the cellar on the map. "She saved me from the snow. Now it's my turn to save her." Detective Matthews knelt beside him. "Noah, you've done brilliantly figuring this out, but you need to stay here where it's safe. We'll get your mother out." But Noah shook his head fiercely. "No, Mom needs to know I'm okay. Marcus is using me to hurt her. Please let me help. I'll stay back, I promise, but I need to be there." After intense debate, they agreed to let Noah accompany the tactical team, heavily protected and staying well behind the front line. As they approached the mansion, Noah felt a strange calm settle over him. The same building that had once housed the organization that destroyed his family would now become the site of their reunion. Through his earpiece, Noah could hear the teams coordinating their entry. His heart pounded as they moved closer to the cellar. Then, faintly, he heard it, his mother's voice, singing their lullaby. "She's alive," he whispered urgently to Detective Martinez. "I can hear her singing." The rescue operation exploded into action. Flash bangs and shouts filled the air as teams breached the mansion from multiple points. Noah, protected behind bulletproof shields, moved forward with his escort team. Through the chaos, he caught glimpses of Marcus's men surrendering, of documents being seized, of justice finally reaching into the dark corners of power. But all he cared about was finding his mother. When they reached the cellar, the sight of Emily bound and bloodied nearly broke him. But her eyes were fierce and proud as they found his. "Noah," she breathed, straining against her bonds. "My brave, brilliant boy." Before Marcus's men could react, the tactical team had them subdued. As officers cut Emily free, Noah ran to her, throwing his arms around her despite the blood and bruises. "I figured it out, Mom," he sobbed into her shoulder. "The song, the book, everything Dad left us. I understood." Emily held him tight, her own tears falling. "Of course you did, sweetheart. Love always finds a way home." Marcus, handcuffed and raging, was led past them. He spat words of hatred and threats, but Noah stood straighter, facing him without fear. "You were wrong," Noah said clearly, his voice carrying in the sudden quiet. "Love isn't weakness. It's how we beat you. Dad knew it at the end. That's why he left us the clues." Emily kissed Noah's forehead, then turned to Marcus with steel in her gaze. "A child's love, Marcus. That's what brought down your empire. Remember that in prison." As medical teams swarmed in to treat Emily's injuries, Noah refused to leave her side. He held her hand through the examination, through the police statements, through everything. The storybook lay open on her hospital bed, William's final gift to them, both a map leading not just to evidence, but back to each other. "We're going to be okay now, aren't we?" Noah asked as dawn broke outside the hospital window. Emily pulled him close, careful of her bandaged ribs. "Yes, my love, because we have what Marcus never had, each other." In his final moments, chained in the basement of another part of the mansion, William Parker thought of snowflakes. Not the cruel blanket that had nearly claimed his son's life, but the gentle flakes Noah used to catch on his tongue, laughing as they melted. Memory was strange that way in death. It chose the moments of light over darkness. "It's time, Mr. Parker," one of Marcus's men announced, entering with a syringe. "Boss wants it to look like suicide. Poetic, don't you think?" William didn't struggle as they approached. His body was too broken from days of interrogation, but his mind was surprisingly clear. He thought of Emily, her strength in protecting their son all these years. He thought of Noah, his resilience, his capacity for love even after such betrayal. "Before you do this," William said, his voice hoarse, "I want to confess something." The man paused, needle hovering. "Make it quick." "The evidence you're looking for," William managed a small smile. "It's not hidden in one place, it's everywhere. In every bank, every office, every dark corner of this city. And the key to finding it all? I gave it to the one person Marcus would never suspect." The man grabbed William's collar. "Who? Tell me." "My son," William whispered. "Because love leaves clues that hate can never find." The needle plunged into his arm, but William felt no fear. His last conscious thoughts were of Noah's storybook, of the careful codes hidden in its pages, of the truth waiting to be discovered by a child's pure heart. As the drugs took effect, William's mind drifted to his last act of fatherhood, the hidden message in Noah's book. Not just coordinates and evidence, but a father's final words to his son. "No, my boy, if you're reading this, I'm already gone. I failed you in life, but perhaps I can protect you in death. The evidence you'll find will destroy Marcus and his empire, but that's not my real legacy to you. My legacy is this: truth love is stronger than fear. I learned too late that power without love is nothing but shadows. You taught me that in the snow sun, even as I betrayed you, your love never wavered. You are stronger than I ever was." Emily, your mother, she understood this from the beginning. That's why Marcus couldn't break her. That's why she survived all these years, watching over you when I was too weak to protect you myself. The codes are simple once you understand: 3 times always 3. Like the lullaby your mother sang. Like the loves that define you, mother, father, child. Follow them, and you'll find everything needed to end this darkness. I don't ask for forgiveness, I don't deserve it. But know this: in my final moments, I finally understood what real strength is. It's not in power or money or control. It's in a child's unwavering heart. In a mother's sacrifice. In love that survives even the coldest betrayal. Be better than me, son. Be like your mother, fierce in love, unbreakable in spirit. And maybe someday, when you think of me, remember not just my failures, but this one last thing I did right. I love you, Noah. I'm sorry it took dying to finally say it truly. Dad. As the drugs pulled him under, William heard commotion above, sirens, shouts, the sound of justice finally arriving. He smiled faintly, knowing Noah had figured it out. His son had always been smarter than him, braver than him, better than him. "Mr. Parker," someone was shaking him. "Stay with us. Medic, we need a medic in here." But William was already floating away, his last image that of snowflakes falling softly in sunlight, and Noah's small hand reaching up to catch them, joy pure on his face. In his final breath, William Parker found peace, knowing that love, the force he had denied for so long, would finally triumph over the darkness he had helped create. The evidence he left behind would destroy Marcus Sullivan and the Sons of Wealth. But his true redemption lay in something far simpler: a father's final gift of truth to his son, and the understanding that love, even damaged and late blooming, could still light the way home. In the stark interrogation room of the police station, Marcus Sullivan sat handcuffed to the table, his expensive suit now wrinkled, his composed facade finally cracking. Detective Matthews laid out photographs, one by one surveillance images spanning years, each telling a part of the story of his obsession with destroying the Parker family. "Let's start from the beginning," Matthews said, pointing to a photo of Emily from 10 years ago. "Why did you target them? What made the Parkers so special?" Marcus's laugh was hollow. Special. They were perfect: the ambitious businessman, his crusading wife, their precious son. The perfect family to break. But as more evidence emerged, a darker truth came to light. Through recorded confessions from Sons of Wealth members and William's hidden documents, the full extent of Marcus's vendetta was revealed. "Emily was never supposed to find those documents," Marcus said, his voice tight with suppressed rage. "She was just a social worker, poking around where she didn't belong. But then she discovered what happened to her sister." Matthews pulled out another file. Sarah Bennett disappeared 15 years ago while investigating child trafficking, Emily's older sister. Sarah was getting too close, Marcus admitted, his mask of civility finally dropping. She found connections between the Sons of Wealth and international trafficking rings. She had to be eliminated. The truth hit like a thunderbolt: Emily's sister had been Marcus's first victim. When Emily unknowingly married William Parker, Marcus saw an opportunity for elaborate revenge. He wouldn't just kill her, he would destroy everything she loved. "So you manipulated William," Matthews continued, "used his ambition, his debts, his fears, forced Emily into hiding by threatening Noah, spent years orchestrating their pain." Marcus leaned forward, eyes glinting. "You don't understand the poetry of it, making William poison his own son? Watching Emily suffer, knowing her sister's fate but unable to prove it. That's true power." But his satisfaction was short-lived. Matthews laid out the final pieces: William's recorded confessions, Emily's carefully gathered evidence, and most damning of all, Noah's testimony. "You failed," Matthews said simply. "The family you tried to destroy? They're stronger now. William died protecting them. Emily and Noah are together. Your true power accomplished nothing." For the first time, real emotion cracked Marcus's facade. "That boy should have died in the snow," he snarled. "Emily should have broken when we took her sister. William should have remained loyal. None of them followed the script." "Because you never understood what you were fighting against," Matthews replied. "Love isn't a weakness to exploit. It's a strength you can't control." As Marcus was led away to his cell, Detective Martinez entered with a final piece of evidence: Sarah Bennett's recovered diary, found in a Sons of Wealth vault. Its pages contained not just proof of Marcus's crimes, but a message Emily had been waiting 15 years to read. "Dear Emily," Sarah had written, "if you're reading this, I'm probably dead. Don't let them win. Love is stronger than their hate. Never stop fighting. Love, Sarah." The diary would be the final nail in Marcus's coffin, ensuring he would never see freedom again. But more importantly, it gave Emily closure: her sister's last words confirming what she had always believed: love was the ultimate weapon against darkness. In his cell, Marcus Sullivan, the man who had orchestrated so much pain, finally faced the truth. He had spent years believing that power came from breaking people, from exploiting love as a weakness. But in the end, it was love that had defeated him: a mother's love for her child, a father's last act of redemption, a sister's enduring message of hope. As night fell over the city, Marcus sat alone in his cell, haunted by the sound of a child's laughter in the snow and the realization that all his power, all his careful plans, had shattered against the simple, unbreakable force of family love. The next morning's newspapers would tell the full story of his crimes, of the Parkers' triumph, of justice finally served. But the real story, the one that would haunt Marcus Sullivan for the rest of his days, was far simpler. He had tried to destroy love, and had been destroyed by it instead. As investigators combed through William Parker's private records, a chilling pattern emerged of how Marcus Sullivan had systematically broken a once good man. The evidence lay in a hidden safe behind William's office walls: years of threatening letters, manipulated financial documents, and William's own desperate journal entries. March 15th, Detective Martinez read from the journal. Marcus offered to help with the company's debt. Said he had investors. "I should have known nothing comes without a price." She turned to Matthews. This is where it started. The financial records told a devastating story. Marcus had first approached William when Parker Enterprises was struggling. The help he offered seemed legitimate: investors, contracts, connections. But each deal came with strings attached, each loan wrapped in layers of control. "Look at this," Matthews pointed to a contract. Marcus didn't just loan him money, he structured the deal so William would never be able to pay them back. Classic loan shark tactics, but on a corporate scale. But the true manipulation went deeper. Marcus had planted his people throughout William's company, ensuring he would get reports on every move, every decision. When William showed signs of resistance, Marcus would spring another trap. June 3rd, Martinez read. "Emily found suspicious documents today. Marcus says if she investigates further, there will be consequences. I have to keep her away from this. I have to protect them." She looked up. This is when he started pushing Emily away. The evidence showed how Marcus had orchestrated every aspect of the family's destruction. He used William's growing debt to force him to join the Sons of Wealth. Then, when Emily discovered the truth about her sister's disappearance, Marcus gave William an impossible choice: force Emily to leave or watch his family die. The psychological manipulation is textbook, the FBI profiler noted. Marcus didn't just control William through money. He made him complicit in small crimes first, building up to bigger ones. By the time he ordered William to kill his own son, the man's moral compass was completely shattered. William's last journal entries revealed his growing desperation. "I see Noah's face every night in my dreams," he wrote. "The trust in his eyes when I gave him that poisoned drink. Emily was right, love should have been stronger than fear. But I was a coward. Marcus knew exactly how to break me." Bank statements showed how Marcus had systematically stripped William of his wealth while maintaining the illusion of success. The mansion, the cars, the lifestyle, all were leveraged to the hilt, leaving William trapped in a golden cage of debt and threats. December 24th read the final entry. "I don't expect forgiveness for what I've done. But maybe, if I can get this evidence to Noah, if I can help Emily bring Marcus down, my death will mean something. Love is stronger than fear. I understand that now, too late. Noah, Emily, I'm sorry. I hope this helps make things right." The investigators also found recordings William had made of his meetings with Marcus, conversations that revealed the true extent of the manipulation. Marcus had played on every fear, every weakness, systematically destroying whatever good remained in William Parker. "It's almost elegant in its cruelty," Matthews observed. "Marcus didn't just want William's money or his cooperation, he wanted to prove that every man has his price, that love and loyalty are illusions that crumble under enough pressure." But in the end, William had proven Marcus wrong. His final act of gathering evidence, of ensuring it would reach Noah and Emily, showed that even a broken man could find redemption through love. The real tragedy, Martinez said, closing William's journal, is that he never knew his plan worked, that Noah and Emily would use his evidence to bring down Marcus, that his last act of love would save his family. As the investigators boxed up the evidence, they found one last note from William, addressed to the police. "I know this confession comes too late to save me, but maybe it can save others from Marcus Sullivan. He didn't just destroy my family. He destroyed my soul. Don't let him do this to anyone else." The evidence would ensure Marcus's conviction, but it also told a cautionary tale of how evil could corrupt even the most decent person through fear, debt, and manipulation. William Parker's tragedy would serve as a reminder that the choice between love and fear must be made every day, and that redemption, while costly, is never truly out of reach. As the case against Marcus Sullivan built, Emily's own story emerged through recovered surveillance footage, diary entries, and witness testimonies. The depth of her sacrifice and silent vigil over Noah stunned even the most hardened investigators. Every Friday at 3 p.m., Detective Martinez noted, reviewing school security footage, she was there, watching his soccer games from behind the fence, never letting him see her, but never missing a match. The footage showed Emily, disguised but present, celebrating silently as Noah scored goals, comforting herself when he fell. Her diary revealed the agony of her choices. "Noah lost a tooth today," one entry read. "I watched from across the street as he showed his friends. William wasn't there, he never is anymore. I wanted so badly to run to him, to be the mother who puts the tooth under his pillow. Instead, I left a small gift where he would find it. Pretending to be the tooth fairy. It's the closest I can come to mothering my own son." The investigators discovered Emily had maintained a secret apartment overlooking Noah's route to school. The walls were covered with his school photos, newspaper clippings of his achievements, copies of his report cards, a shrine to all the moments she couldn't share. Christmas was the hardest she had written. Watching him decorate the tree alone, knowing William was destroying our boy's spirit bit by bit. But Marcus's threats were clear: one wrong move, and Noah would disappear forever. So I stand in the snow, watching my son's light dim, powerless to protect him except through absence. Evidence showed how Emily had methodically gathered information on Marcus and the Sons of Wealth while maintaining her distance. She took jobs that kept her close but invisible: school custodian, library assistant, crossing guard, but each position carefully chosen to watch over Noah without revealing her identity. The true torture, Matthews observed, was knowing her sister's fate while watching her son suffer. She couldn't save Sarah, but she was determined to save Noah. even if it meant sacrificing her own happiness. The most heartbreaking discovery was a box of unopened birthday presents, one for each year she'd been away. Each contained a card explaining why she had left, why she had to stay away, how much she loved him. She had written them, never knowing if Noah would ever read them. My dearest boy. The latest card read, "Today you turn 9. I watched you walking home from school, and my heart nearly burst with pride at the person you're becoming. Despite everything, you remain kind, loving, strong. I hope someday you'll understand that leaving you was the hardest choice I've ever made. Every day apart has been a knife in my heart, but knowing you're alive makes the pain worthwhile." The surveillance photos found in Marcus's office revealed how closely he had monitored Emily's secret vigil. He had known all along that she was watching Noah, using her presence as another form of torture, letting her see her son, but never touch him. Never comfort him, never mother him. December 24th read her final entry before the rescue. "Something's wrong. William's behavior has changed. Marcus is planning something, I can feel it. I've maintained my distance for 6 years, but tonight I'll break my own rules if I have to. I won't let them hurt my son, even if it means sacrificing everything I've built to protect him." That entry had led to her fateful Christmas Eve patrol, to finding Noah in the snow, to finally holding her son again after so many years of watching from shadows. The price of her sacrifice had been immense, but in the end, her love had proven stronger than Marcus's threats. As Emily testified against Marcus, her voice steady and clear, she finally told her full story. The courtroom fell silent hearing about the mother who had lived like a ghost, protecting her child through absence, loving him from afar until the moment came to save him. "I lost 6 years with my son," she concluded, looking directly at Marcus. "But you lost everything, because you never understood that a mother's love can't be broken by fear or threats. It only grows stronger in darkness." The judge's summary would later note that Emily Bennett Parker's testimony revealed not just Marcus Sullivan's crimes, but the extraordinary power of maternal love, a force that could sustain hope through years of separation, that could turn sacrifice into salvation, that could ultimately triumph over the darkest evil. 1 year after Marcus Sullivan's conviction, Emily and Noah stood before William Parker's grave on a crisp December morning. The headstone was simple, bearing only his name, dates, and the words "Love conquers fear," chosen by Noah himself. "Do you think he can see us?" Mom Noah asked, placing a small stone on the grave marker. In his other hand he clutched his father's storybook, its pages now well worn from countless readings. Emily wrapped an arm around her son's shoulders. "I believe he can. And I think he'd be proud of how far we've come." She looked at the fresh flowers they had brought, white lilies, William's favorite. "Your father made terrible mistakes, but in the end he found his way back to love." The past year had been one of healing and rebuilding. After Marcus's arrest, Emily and Noah had moved into a cozy house near the park, its walls quickly filling with photos, artwork, and memories they were finally free to create together. The mansion where Noah had spent his lonely years was sold, the proceeds going to a foundation they established to help children affected by family trauma. "I've been writing something," Noah said, opening the storybook to reveal new pages he had added. "It's about Dad, but also about us, about how love can survive even when everything else falls apart." Emily read the story, tears gathering in her eyes. Noah had written about a father trapped in a tower of ice, a mother watching from the shadows, and a child whose heart was warm enough to melt all the frozen walls between them. It was their story transformed through a child's wisdom into something beautiful and healing. Mom Noah asked as she finished reading, "Is it okay to miss him, even after what he did?" Emily knelt beside him, taking his hands in hers. "Of course it is, sweetheart. Love isn't simple. Your father did horrible things, but he also loved you very much. Both things can be true at the same time." They had discovered this complexity in the months following William's death. Among his belongings they found years of birthday cards he had never sent, photos he had secretly taken of Noah's school events, and journals filled with regret and love in equal measure. The healing hadn't been easy. Noah still had nightmares about the snow sometimes, and Emily still caught herself checking exits and scanning for threats habits formed during her years of secret vigilance. But they faced these challenges together, their bond stronger for having been tested by fire. Their weekly therapy sessions had become a space for honest conversations about pain, forgiveness, and rebuilding trust. Noah learned that it was okay to love both the father who had betrayed him and the mother who had protected him from afar. Emily learned that being present now was more important than guilt over the past. "I wrote something too," Emily said, pulling out a letter she had been carrying. "Would you like to hear it?" Noah nodded, settling beside her on the grass before the grave. The morning sun cast long shadows as Emily began to read. "Dear William, a year has passed since you left us. Noah grows stronger every day, his heart somehow still full of love despite everything he's endured. He has your creativity, your quick mind, but also a wisdom that's entirely his own. I've learned to forgive you, not just for Noah's sake, but for my own. You were right in your final message. Love is stronger than fear. I see it in our son's eyes every day, in his ability to transform pain into beauty through his stories. We're building a new life, but we haven't forgotten you. Noah tells me stories about the father you were before darkness claimed you. I share memories of the man I fell in love with, the one who danced with me in the rain and dreamed of changing the world. You found your way back to love in the end. That's the legacy we choose to honor, not the mistakes, but the redemption. Noah understands this better than anyone. He's teaching me that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, it means choosing to love anyway. Rest in peace, William. We're okay now. Love did conquer fear, just as you finally understood. Emily. When she finished reading, Noah was crying softly, but they were healing tears. He hugged her tightly, and they sat together in the morning silence, three hearts connected by love that had survived the darkest night. As they walked away from the grave, Noah took his mother's hand. "Can we get hot chocolate?" with 3 marshmallows and a sprinkle of cinnamon. Emily finished, smiling. Some traditions are worth keeping forever. 5 years after Marcus Sullivan's conviction, Noah Parker sat in a crowded bookstore, facing an audience eager to hear about his first novel, Snow Angels. At 16, he had become the youngest author to tackle the complex themes of family trauma, redemption, and the power of love through a child's eyes. The story began in the snow. Noah read from his opening chapter, his voice steady and clear. Not the gentle snow of Christmas cards, but the kind that buries secrets and swallows hope. Yet even in that coldness, love found a way to bloom. Emily sat in the back row, tears of pride glistening in her eyes. She remembered the journey that had led to this moment, the countless nights Noah had spent writing, processing his trauma through words, transforming pain into purpose. The novel had started as therapy assignments, simple stories about a boy lost in the snow. But as Noah healed, the stories grew deeper, incorporating his father's redemption, his mother's sacrifice, and the complex nature of forgiveness. His therapist had been the first to suggest publishing them. "People often ask me how much of the book is true," Noah said during the QA session. "The answer is all of it and none of it. The emotions are real, but I've woven them into a fairy tale because sometimes truth is easier to face through metaphor." His novel had touched a nerve, particularly with children from broken homes. Letters poured in from readers who saw their own struggles reflected in his words. Noah responded to each one personally, sharing the wisdom he had gained through his own healing journey. The book's success had led to speaking engagements at schools and youth centers. Noah used these opportunities to talk about resilience, forgiveness, and the transformative power of storytelling. He established a foundation that provided creative writing workshops for traumatized children, helping them find their own voices. Writing saved me, he explained to a young girl after the reading. When I couldn't speak about what happened, I could write about it. When I couldn't understand my feelings, I could give them to characters who helped me make sense of them. Emily watched as her son connected with his readers, marveling at how he had transformed tragedy into triumph. The scared boy in the snow had become a beacon of hope for others, using his pain to light the way for those still lost in their own darkness. The hardest chapter to write, Noah admitted during an interview, was the one about forgiveness. How do you forgive someone who tried to destroy you? But then I realized forgiveness isn't about excusing what happened. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of hatred. His father's storybook sat on display next to his novel, the book that had saved their lives, now preserved as a testament to love's endurance. Noah had included photographs of its pages in his novel's appendix, showing how William had hidden his redemption in plain sight. The success of Snow Angels led to a series of children's books about healing and hope. Noah created characters who faced their fears, who learned to trust again, who discovered strength in their scars. Each story carried echoes of his own journey, but transformed into universal tales that children could understand and draw comfort from. My mother taught me that love leaves clues, Noah told his audience, smiling at Emily. Even in our darkest moments, if we look carefully, we can find breadcrumbs leading us home. Sometimes those breadcrumbs are words on a page, sometimes they're memories we hold on to, sometimes they're the people who never stop believing in us. After the signing, mother and son walked through the park where they had begun rebuilding their relationship years ago. Noah's latest manuscript was tucked under his arm, a memoir this time, telling their story without metaphors. "Are you sure you're ready to tell it straight?" Emily asked, squeezing his hand. Noah nodded, his father's quiet strength and his mother's fierce love evident in his bearing. The fairy tale helped people find hope. Now it's time for the truth to help them find courage. As snow began to fall softly around them, Noah looked up at the sky, no longer afraid of its white silence. He had learned to see beauty where once there was only pain, to find purpose in his past, to transform trauma into art that healed not just himself but others. Besides, he said, smiling at his mother, it's a love story, really. About how love can survive anything: betrayal, separation, even the coldest night. That's what people need to hear most of all. On Christmas Eve, 5 years after Marcus Sullivan's defeat, Emily and Noah's home glowed with warmth and light. The small house they had made their own was filled with the scent of cinnamon and pine, decorations twinkling from every corner. But unlike the cold opulence of their past, each ornament here held meaning. Each light represented hope restored. The trees a little crooked, Noah observed, now 16 and nearly as tall as his mother. He stood back, examining their handiwork, a real pine tree decorated with homemade ornaments and memories. Emily wrapped an arm around him, remembering the lonely little boy who once decorated a tree by himself. "Perfect isn't always better," she said softly. "Sometimes the flaws make things more beautiful." They had started new traditions over the years. Each Christmas Eve, they volunteered at the local children's shelter, the same one where Emily had worked during her years of secret vigilance. Noah would read from his books, sharing stories of hope with children who needed them most. This year was special. The foundation they had established with William's estate, the Parker Family Trust for Children's Protection, was opening its first safe house. The building would provide a haven for families escaping situations like theirs, offering not just shelter but healing through art and storytelling programs Noah had designed. "Dad would have liked this," Noah said, adjusting a crystal angel on the tree, the only decoration they'd kept from the mansion, using his money to help others, turning everything around. The doorbell rang, and Emily opened it to welcome their guests, Detective Matthews and his family, Detective Martinez, Noah's therapist Dr. Sarah, and others who had helped them along their journey. Each person brought not just food or gifts, but pieces of their shared story of triumph over darkness. Later, as their friends gathered around the dinner table, Noah stood to make a toast. He held up his mug of hot chocolate still served with 3 marshmallows and a sprinkle of cinnamon. 5 years ago, he began, I thought Christmas would never feel warm again. I was lost in the snow, betrayed by my father, separated from my mother. But love found a way to bring us home. He looked at each face around the table. You all helped write our happy ending. Detective Matthews, who believed a 9-year-old boy could crack a code. Detective Martinez, who protected me while I searched for Mom. Dr. Sarah, who helped me turn pain into purpose. Emily wiped tears from her eyes as Noah continued. But most of all, I want to toast 2 people who aren't here physically but are very much present in my heart. My father, who found his way back to love even if it was too late. And my Aunt Sarah, whose sacrifice started Mom on the path that would eventually save us all. He raised his mug higher. To love that never gives up, to truth that sets us free, and to snow angels who watch over lost children. After dinner, as their guests shared stories and laughter, Emily found Noah in his father's study, now converted into his writing room. He was holding William's storybook, tracing the worn cover. Sometimes he said without looking up, I imagine him watching us. Do you think he's proud? Emily sat beside him, taking his hand. I know he is. You've taken everything dark in our story and turned it into light for others. That's something to be proud of. They heard carolers outside, their voices carrying through the gentle snowfall. Unlike the bitter cold of that terrible Christmas 5 years ago, this snow felt like a blessing, clean, pure healing. Noah opened the storybook to its last page, where William's final message remained, love is stronger than fear. Below it, Noah had added his own words, and truth is stronger than darkness. As midnight approached, Emily and Noah stood on their porch, watching the snow fall. They had started a tradition of releasing lanterns at midnight, one for William, one for Aunt Sarah, and one for the lost child Noah had been, now found and healed. Make a wish, Emily said as they prepared to release the lanterns. Noah smiled, the same smile that had once lit up William's face in happier times. I don't need to, he replied. Everything I wished for that night in the snow, love, family, purpose, it all came true. Just not in the way I expected. The lanterns rose into the night sky, their warm light reflecting off the falling snow. From somewhere in the distance, church bells began to ring, welcoming Christmas Day. Mother and son stood together, their hearts full of a peace that had been hard-won but was now unshakable. They had learned that healing doesn't mean forgetting, that forgiveness doesn't erase the past, and that love, even when buried under years of pain and separation, can always find its way home. Merry Christmas, Mom, Noah whispered, hugging her tight. Merry Christmas, my brave boy, Emily replied, holding her son close as the snow continued to fall, each flake a reminder that even the coldest night can turn to morning, and that love, in the end, conquers all. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective adds depth to our storytelling community. Support our team's dedication to crafting meaningful narratives by subscribing to our channel and sharing this story with loved ones who might find hope in its message. Every like, comment, and share helps us continue creating stories that explore the profound depths of human emotion and resilience. Join us on this journey of storytelling, where every tale has the power to heal, inspire, and connect hearts across distances.